We are now officially entering into uncharted territory here in the United States and throughout the world pertaining to a major pandemic that has been announced officially towards what the general population is fixing to have to be exposed to. But I want you to listen to the president speaking in his wording that he uses towards marshaling. The word marshaling has been brought up for the first time in his expressions of how that he is expressing himself towards the government. And that is chilling to me. It brings chills up and down my spine to hear a president use the word marshaling. That is very, very careful in the way that he is approaching his situation. Before I turn the TV on, I just want my viewers to understand that the powers of darkness versus the powers of light is real. And there's no doubt that God has taken his hand of protection, his umbrella of protection off of the planet. And basically, Lucifer, Satan, right now, is wreaking havoc up onto societies all over this planet. And we have yet to even dare hit the top of the iceberg, the tip of the iceberg, towards how insensitive and cruel, unusual, cold, that this is really all going to expire into. Especially whenever you're talking about third world countries that don't have preventative health measures like the United States and other countries do. When you have something that is this apparent, that has been unleashed upon to society, the measures need to be taken in the most serious form in these regards. I can't sit and judge the President of the United States towards what that he either has or has not done, of rather not it be effective, efficient, adequate, rather not it was an overkill, rather not it wasn't aggressive enough, rather not it was too aggressive. I'm not the President of the United States. I'm only a messenger that's to bring forth the message to not only the American people but to the world. I'm a universalist, working with the gospel in the universe, a universal message that is to be brought before the world, not just before the American people. And the message right now is dire. The message right now is crucial. The message right now is imperative. The message right now is for people to properly prepare for even the worst. We all hope for the best. But if you're smart, if you're wise, if you're intelligent, at the same time, by hoping for the best, you also hope. You also expect the worst in hoping for the best. It's just part of being practical. It's part of being on point pertaining to what if going down the list of prevention and survival. What if these occurrences was to drastically grow worse? So as you're listening to this, please take notice that the Windmill Ministries here at 291 Thompson Road, from the get-go, from the time that this has been exposed to the general population, has told the viewers, has told my viewers, please do not take this lightly. This is not Hollywood. This is not something that's been fabricated in some sort of a manuscript or a script that we're going to play out, kind of like Twilight Zone, like The Birds or something, or some other types of crazy scientific movie like The Fly or something like that. No, this is the real deal. This don't have nothing to do with animation. This don't have nothing to do with somebody's imagination. This don't have nothing to do with somebody trying to gain popularity with some sort of a senses high ratings program show. This is raw and to the point. And we just wanted to let our viewers know that before watching this particular program, which is basically breaking the ice of how imperative it is for people to listen and pay close attention to what is going on, not only here in America, but throughout the planet, from now and within the next 60 to 90 days. It could make a defiant difference on whether or not you go through harsh measures that possibly you could have prevented, or it could actually make a difference between life and death. So please, as you're listening to this, do not take it lightly. But at the same time, that means do not create a panic. Because a panic of a situation sometimes can be just as lethal, just as bad as the situation, because of the panic of the situation. So whatever that you do not create a panic. Panic can cause things to even intensify and get worse. So we have to approach this in a logical, practical, sincere, adult, professional way. Please listen. Listen up.
Losses on Wall Street accelerating, an entire country on edge. This morning, Vice President Mike Pence joins us for a live interview. Mass cancellations.
And you see the teams heading back to the locker room.
The NBA suspends its season after a player tests positive just moments before a game.
It's something out of a movie, and you just don't expect it to happen in real life.
March Madness tournament still on, but without crowds. One of the nation's largest parades postponed for the first time in 258 years. How America is adjusting to the new normal of social distancing. And stunning announcement. Hollywood legend Tom Hanks and his wife Rita Wilson revealing they had the coronavirus, testing positive in Australia. The couple now in isolation. Their message to fans on their health and what it's like to have the virus. Today, Thursday, March 12th, 2020.
From NBC News, this is Today with Savannah Guthrie and Hoda Kotb. From Studio 1A in Rockefeller Plaza.
Hi, everybody. Welcome to Today. We're happy that you joined us on this Thursday morning.
Yeah, nice to see you on a busy morning while you were sleeping or maybe tossing and turning in your bed. A lot has happened when it comes to the coronavirus. It's now been declared a global pandemic.
This may seem overwhelming. There is a lot to take in and process, and we're going to walk you through everything.
Yes, we are. So here we go. In a desperate attempt to slow the spread of this virus, the president has announced significant new restrictions on travel from Europe to the U.S. It will start on Friday and last for at least 30 days.
Meantime, the NBA is going dark, suspending its season until further notice after a player for the Utah Jazz tested positive for the virus.
Also, overnight, Tom Hanks took to Instagram announcing that he and his wife, Rita Wilson, have contracted the virus as well.
And in yet another development, a passenger aboard a JetBlue flight from New York to Palm Beach, Florida, was diagnosed when the plane reached its final destination. That was a big scare, of course, for fellow passengers.
In a moment, we're going to talk live to Vice President Mike Pence, who is overseeing the government's response in this matter.
But we do begin our coverage with NBC's Tom Costello. Tom, good morning.
Good morning. A congressional doctor is now warning members of Congress that we could have 150 million people in the U.S. infected with the virus. And while 80% of us will get through it just fine, 20% of the population is very vulnerable, especially anybody 60 and older. And of course, that really encompasses a lot of members of Congress. Meanwhile, airports like this one are seeing passenger levels drop dramatically as travelers worldwide try to figure out what to do.
My fellow Americans,
In a primetime address, President Trump announcing suspension of all travel from Europe to the U.S. for the next 30 days.
we are marshaling the full power.
For the next 30 days.
We are marshaling the full power of the federal government and we are marshaling the full power of the federal government and the private sector to put. We are marshaling the full power of the federal government and the private sector to protect the of the federal government.
30 days.
We are marshaling the full power of the federal government and the private sector to protect the American.
See what I'm saying? He used the word marshaling. That is very important. Whenever the President of the United States uses that word, you need to pay close attention to what is happening and what is going on.
People.
Using some of his most pointed language yet when talking about the coronavirus.
This is the most aggressive and comprehensive effort to confront a foreign virus in modern history.
The restrictions, which go into effect Friday at midnight, only apply to foreign nationals, not U.S. citizens or their family members. The travel ban to 26 European countries does not include the United Kingdom and only impacts people, not goods.
The European Union failed to take the same precautions. As a result, a large number of new clusters in the United States were seeded by travelers from Europe.
This morning, the State Department is raising the worldwide travel advisory to level 3, urging all U.S. citizens to reconsider traveling abroad. Meanwhile, the president also announcing new measures to protect Americans from both the medical and financial toll of the disease, including waiving all co-payments and extending insurance coverage for coronavirus treatments, offering low-interest loans and deferred tax payments for small businesses in affected areas, and financial relief for those quarantined and their caregivers.
Each of us has a role to play in defeating this virus. Wash your hands, clean often used surfaces, cover your face and mouth if you sneeze or cough, and most of all, if you are sick or not feeling well, stay home.
The action comes as the World Health Organization is now classifying the spread of the virus as a global pandemic. On Capitol Hill, top health official Dr. Anthony Fauci with this warning.
Bottom line, it's going to get worse.
And pushing back on those who downplay the severity of the situation.
We would hope that as we get to warmer weather, it would go down. But we can't proceed under that assumption. We've got to assume that it's going to get worse and worse and worse.
Listen carefully to Dr. Fauci's numbers.
The flu has a mortality of 0.1%.
Sure.
This has a mortality of 10 times that.
That right there is what is terrifying, guys, because I heard this yesterday at the Johns Hopkins Command Center in Baltimore, where they're watching the coronavirus and preparing for its impact. This virus has a 10 times the mortality rate of the seasonal flu. Nobody wants to scare anybody, but the seasonal flu has already claimed 20,000 lives. So when you've got the nation's top doctors issuing this warning, it becomes very concerning. And by the way, the reason they're telling people, stay out of public areas, why are they canceling classes? They're trying to slow the spread of this virus, not stop it. They don't think that's possible. But they want to slow the spread so that ERs and ICUs are not overwhelmed and inundated, because they say the medical system right now cannot handle that kind of tsunami of patients all at once. Guys, back to you.
All right, Tom Costello, thank you. And joining us now is Vice President Mike Pence. Mr. Vice President, good morning to you.
Morning, Savannah.
Well, let's just start right there with what Dr. Fauci said and settle this once and for all. This is much more lethal than the seasonal flu, correct?
It is, Savannah. It according to all of our health experts on the White House Coronavirus Task Force, it does not, as we look at global data, present as much a threat to younger Americans, particularly children under the age of 15, but for senior citizens with serious underlying health conditions, it represents a threat of very serious consequences.
Okay.
It's one of the reasons why the president took the unprecedented step yesterday of suspending all travel from Europe, just that he has done so in
Yes.
January with China. And we're going to be screening and asking every American who returns from Europe over the next 30 days to self-quarantine for 14 days. It's we want to focus on those that are most vulnerable, but we also want to work on ensuring that the coronavirus is not further brought into our country from Europe. And we're obviously continuing to focus in areas of California, Washington State, and New York, where we've seen what the experts call community spread. It's that combination of efforts.
Forgive the interruption, but I want
we're addressing because of the threat.
Yeah, I'm hoping that we can just get a lot of facts out in the few minutes we have together. Just leveling with people. The president has said, as recently as 2 days ago, this will go away. Yesterday, Dr. Anthony Fauci said you can expect millions and millions to get it. The worst is yet to come. Congress's own doctor said that a third of the American population could get coronavirus. Do you agree with that number? What do your experts tell you the number of infected Americans is likely to be? A number. I'm looking for a number if you have it.
Well, let me be clear that from early on, the president has declared a public health emergency, suspended all travel from China. We limited travel and issued advisories for portions of Italy and South Korea, and now the suspension of travel from Europe, precisely for the reason that we know there will be thousands more cases of coronavirus in this country.
Thousands or millions?
But I'll leave to the experts to make the estimates of how many people may be infected. And it's important for your viewers to remember, Savannah, that the vast majority of people, even that contract the coronavirus, will experience flu-like symptoms and they'll fully recover. But it's because of the vulnerable population, seniors with serious chronic underlying health conditions, that we're focusing so much attention on nursing homes. We're communicating so much with health officials and families that have seniors in a vulnerable condition. We're looking at the most vulnerable. We're combating community spread. But the action the president took yesterday, again, unprecedented action, suspending travel from Europe for 30 days, is all because we know there will be more infections in the days ahead. We're trying to hold that number down as much as possible. That's the reason the president took the action regarding Europe.
No question. And we're seeing unprecedented actions on the behalf of sports organizations, companies, travel, all across this country. Let's talk about testing. There's no catching up to this. or even trying to slow it if you don't test. South Korea, whose onset was roughly around the same time as the U.S., is testing roughly 15,000 people a day and says it's tested more than 100,000 people overall. Every indication is that the U.S. has not tested anywhere near that number of people. Why not?
Well, from early on in this effort, we've been addressing the testing issue. We made changes through the FDA that allowed for state labs and university hospitals and hospitals to engage in testing. And I'm pleased to report every state lab in America can do testing now. Many university laboratories are doing it. Washington State, the University of Washington, is doing extraordinary work. But we are literally working hour by hour to expand the testing, and we think the key, Savannah, is going to be what we call commercial laboratories like LabCorp and Quest, who are already spinning up production at the president's direction last week on tests that can be available on a broad basis in the days ahead for the American people. We're making real progress, but rest assured we're going to continue to drive forward. And but anyone that feels that they may have contracted the coronavirus should call their doctor. Their doctor can contact the state lab and determine where testing can take place today in all 50 states.
Was there a little bit of a lag time, slowness about testing? In particular, the World Health Organization in February sent out a coronavirus test to 60 countries, but the U.S. was not among them because the U.S. wanted to develop its own test. Was it a mistake to not just take that WHO test while we waited to develop our own test so that the testing could ramp up earlier?
Well, it's a fair question, and Dr. Fauci and I were talking with congressional leadership in both parties last night, and that topic came up. And what Dr. Fauci said was that's actually not the way we do it in the United States. Frankly, we're the world leader in infectious diseases. Our CDC and then our FDA produce and approve tests through our incredible healthcare system in this country. And so that's more of a reference of that decision, according to what Dr. Fauci said. But your viewers should know that we are continuing to lean into this effort. The president tapped me to lead the White House Coronavirus Task Force about 2 weeks ago. We brought in all of the leadership of course, health insurance industries, nursing homes, bankers yesterday, but we brought in those commercial labs like Quest and LabCorp that are already on their websites, already producing more tests for Americans. Yeah. And the good news, as the president said last night, is any American who feels that they may have been exposed to the coronavirus or has symptoms can know that because of the president's leadership, all of our health insurance companies have waived co-pays on testing, have agreed to extend coverage for treatment, and we've made sure that Medicaid and Medicare recipients in this country have the exact same benefit.
Okay.
A person's financial situation should not be a barrier to being tested, nor should the risk of losing your job. The president's going to continue to drive for family leave benefits for hourly workers, for small businesses, so that anyone who feels they may have been exposed can stay home without fear of losing a paycheck.
And Mr. Vice President, I know you have another interview, so I got to jump. I just want to ask you real quickly. Unfortunately, this has been infected by politics like so many things. And some people think this is just hysteria and media hype. I mean, the president himself said on Monday the fake news media and their partner, the Democratic Party, is doing everything to inflame the coronavirus situation. So there are people out there who believe this, and they are going about their business like nothing's going on. And we have about 10-15 seconds for you to get your message to them, for people who aren't afraid of coronavirus and think it's just politics and hype.
Well, obviously there's been some irresponsible rhetoric, but the American people should know that President Trump has no higher priority than the health and safety and well-being of the people of this country. You can go to coronavirus.gov right now to find out what every American can do to keep yourself, your family, your workplace, and your school safe.
Thank you.
But you can rest assured we're going to focus on communities where we've had community spread, and the president's action yesterday suspending travel from Europe is one more example of how he's putting the health of America first.
All right. I know you're taking it seriously, Mr. Vice President. Thank you very much for your time, and I'll let you go. Appreciate it.
Thanks, Samba. Thank you.
Craig joins the table now, as does NBC News medical correspondent Dr. John Torres, NBC senior business correspondent Stephanie Ruhle. Dr. Torres, let's start with you. What did you hear from the president, from the vice president, about the way we're handling this situation?
So what I heard is that they're taking it a lot more serious than I think a lot of us thought they were taking, at least initially. And we know that we've been a little bit behind the eight ball in getting prepared for this and actually taking action, and that's why it's spread throughout the country. And now they're taking these steps to try and get it contained. The issue is we've already broken through that containment, so we're almost at a mitigation stage where we say, we know it's going to spread, but let's make these steps to try and not let it spread too much and bring that curve down that we talked about yesterday.
A lot of things that you read are about the testing, the lag time. Okay, even if you can get the test, then you got to wait for the lab to come back. People are going about their business, not quarantine, while they wait for the results of the test. Do you hear from the vice president encouraging words in terms of now we're going to ramp up this testing?
And that's the one thing I didn't hear much of about testing and how we're going to ramp up this testing. And that's been the biggest frustration with a lot of physicians, a lot of public health experts. Without the test, you can't tell where the clusters are. Without knowing where the clusters are, you can't get the people, equipment there that you need to treat them and to keep it contained. And that's extremely important. So that test is one of the linchpins to getting this thing under control. And it hasn't quite been there yet. Hopefully it expands and gets better.
Dr. Torres, really quickly, I read something yesterday that I found a bit troubling. All of those who are being diagnosed with the coronavirus and the deaths related to it, are those numbers being reported to the CDC?
We have a very fragmented system here in the country, and this is what we've seen with other things. Vaping in the past, if you remember that, those numbers weren't reported directly to the CDC. So we need to get a system that does that. Right now, there's 50 public health departments. For each state has theirs. Each state has a lot of counties that have public health departments, and so that reporting process is difficult at best in this country.
Let's bring in Steph. Steph, right after the president spoke, the Dow numbers just tanked. What exactly did he say that caused that?
The markets, investors, companies saw the president not assessing the risk. Very clearly not saying how we're going to increase testing and what the numbers are. This is all about risk management. You have to assess how widespread is this and what do we do about it. People keep saying this is a financial crisis. It's very different from the 2008 financial crisis where we really were in economic straits. This is a public health crisis, and suddenly there was a tipping point yesterday when Americans watched famous people have corona. The NBA is canceling their season. The country of Italy is shut down. When you see that, suddenly we're realizing the best way to contain and mitigate this is basically close down for a period of time, shut down the economy, and then when everybody's better, come back out.
Well, to your point,
hear that.
The administration rightly says, I think the fundamental of the economy, what you're saying is it's not some underlying problem with the economy, but now we do have economic problems because of the public health response that is required here.
That's exactly it. This is a public health crisis that thus far has been addressed with PR, with politics, trying to downplay it for whatever reason. And because of that, we are now facing an economic crisis. When you cancel the NBA season, and that's the right thing to do from a health perspective, think about the trickle-down effect. And when we talk about social distancing, how important that is, 6 feet apart. In a homeless shelter, cots are 6 inches apart.
Right.
6 inches.
I don't have words to really express what is going on here in and from a humanitarian point of view, other than it being really, 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 really real pertaining to the coronavirus. The only support that I can give my viewers right now is that this is biblical Bible prophecy coming true. You keep in mind that even during the time whenever Christ was walking amongst us, there was a bad pandemic at that time called leprosy. And the health crisis communities didn't know what to do with leprosy if someone had leprosy, other than to take them put them off into a confined area, such as a cave or something. And that's where that person remained until they either withdrawed from their symptoms and got better, or they went ahead and become deceased. And you hate to be so callous. You hate to be so abrupt about how that you put this out there to the people that need to hear this, but there really isn't no other way to sugarcoat this situation once it reaches this level of severity. And of course, in consolation of that, all people, regardless whether they're believers or non-believers, in our perspective here at 291 Thompson Road, should always have a clear, definitive relationship with God through the teachings of the Lord Jesus Christ, because none of us is guaranteed a tomorrow. None of us. Regardless whether we're rich, famous, poor, smart, dumb, regardless of the positions that we hold politically or spiritually here upon this planet, none of us is guaranteed a tomorrow. And whenever we're faced with the inedible, towards understanding that, then is whenever we might see a revival or a movement that will elevate the world off into a revolution. A revolution of the meek inheriting the earth. Because God's people, His chosen, His elect, will come out of this. Even as the Bible predicts. For as you shall see the days approaching, that no flesh shall be saved. But for the elect's sake, whom He has chosen, those days will be shortened. In other words, there are people out there that God the Father has chosen to be able to ride this storm out. And hopefully, preferably, you're one of them. Hopefully, preferably, I'm one of them. Towards understanding the divine, understanding the supernatural, understanding that there are people that has been selected, delegated by God, to ride this storm out and to help others. So if it's any consolation, the consolation is this. Please, if you've never taken your spirituality serious in the regards towards where are you going to go beyond this life into the afterlife, now may be that time that you need to sit down and really consult with yourself, with your own personal conscience, that this is something that I possibly need to address and think about. Because once more, none of us is guaranteed a tomorrow, and the best that we can promote at this point in time is the very same thing that we've been promoting all along, which is to be prayed up, packed up, and ready to go up, spiritually speaking. Because none of us know if we're guaranteed a tomorrow. We know not what tomorrow holds, as the Bible professes. But we do know who holds tomorrow, which is God Almighty, the creator of this universe. And if it's meant for me, myself and I, to come down with the coronavirus and subsequently die because of this virus, then hallelujah. It just means that I'm going to be entering into the kingdom of God a little earlier than what I thought. But hopefully I'll still be able to maintain and fulfill my purpose that God has ordained me to fulfill towards one day seeing this great revival, seeing this great revolution that will escalate into a peace or utopia that will fall upon to humanity in these last days, to the point that we see biblical Bible prophecy fulfill itself in the regards towards the opening of that second seal. These are the things that I've been preaching and teaching now for quite some times. We didn't realize that this particular entity was going to be thrown into the equation But now that it is, we must learn to deal with it appropriately, effectively, and efficiently. There is no second guessing here. This is crucial. This is imperative. And it's how an individual deals with this on a personal level could be the difference between struggling, between a harshness that can be fallen upon to themselves and upon to their families, or could actually make the difference of whether or not that person, he or she, either enters into eternity of life or eternity of darkness. So we pray for those that are experiencing this right now, not only here in America, but throughout the planet, that they will make the right decisions in these biblical, Bible, end time prophecies coming true. And regardless whether it was the coronavirus, tuberculosis, AIDS, cancer, sexual transmitted diseases, or other forms of bad health, once more, none of us is guaranteed a tomorrow physically living up onto this planet. We could all be snubbed out with an accident, a heart attack, an aneurysm, a stroke. Somebody could go off the loose end, the deep end, and be involved in a horrible, horrible situation such as what happened in Las Vegas or down in Orlando, Florida. So if there's ever been a time that people needed to address these issues in a more profound, serious type way, it is today. Regardless whether the President of the United States is using words like marshaling or using other tactics to get your attention, you should pay very close attention to what is happening around you, with you, for your own consciousness' sake. Please do not take these matters lightly. Be conservative with your cautiousness to the point of not becoming panicked, but at the same time, be cautious.
Inches. Yeah. All right. Well, Stephanie, thank you, Dr. Torres. Thank you.
Let us turn now to Mr. Roker for a first check of that weather. Hey, Al.
Hey, guys. Good morning. Unfortunately,
Don't use if you're allergic to Otezla. It may cause severe diarrhea, nausea, or vomiting. Otezla is associated with an increased risk of depression.
You have to rely on your gear.
A night that will surely live long in the memory of these Paris Saint-Germain supporters. Even though they weren't there to see it, it was clear their presence was felt.
C'était vraiment extraordinaire.
It was really extraordinary. On the bus, it was strong. It was. It gave an atmosphere on the bus with a lot of confidence, a lot of joy. And then the team started singing. We sang together. We tapped. It was good. It was before the match. It was exactly the atmosphere we need before a match with a lot of pressure.
The last call clearance event. Only
got Tom Hanks and his wife Rita Wilson said much of
isolation or that sort of thing so that the word of this virus could not get out. It probably cost the world community 2 months to respond, and those 2 months, if we'd had those and been able to sequence the virus and had the cooperation necessary from the Chinese, had a WHO team been on the ground, had a CDC team, which we'd offered, been on the ground, I think we could have dramatically curtailed what happened both in China and what's now happening across the world.
Oh, geez, that was National Security Advisor Robert O'Brien speaking yesterday in Washington. Several governors have declared a state of emergency in their own states.
Well, sure they will. They'll declare a state of emergency in regards to the seriousness of this, and also trying to protect themselves from any type of legal liability issues of not properly warning the people promptly and professionally of the seriousness of all this. Sure they will. Absolutely they will. I wish now that it should have been addressed in more of a severe, cautious way. But, hindsight is always better than foresight. And, we can't do nothing now about what has occurred in the past. The past is the past. The present is the present. Now we must deal with the future, the present and the future. And what has occurred in the past, that's, as the old saying goes, that's spilt milk. As the kitty used to say, that's spilt milk. There's nothing that we can do about it now. Hopefully, if this ever does come up again towards world affairs in a global pandemic type atmosphere, that these professionals will address the world in a different enlightenment form, so that the people can be betterly prepared. Coming from a ministry here at 291 Thompson Road, Sharon, Tennessee, the best that we can tell anybody is to make sure that you've got your life in order, to the point that regardless whether it be a pandemic, heart attack, stroke, aneurysm, or any other type of accident that may happen, to make sure that you have your affairs in order, that you know that if something was to occur in your life, that you would be homebound, you would be heaven bound, you would in fact go into a better place. Thanks again to my viewers. We can't emphasize on it enough here at the Windmill Ministries. Good luck to all of us. And once more, shalom. As I travel through this pilgrim land, there is a friend who dwells with me. As I kneel in prayer, I hope to see you there. Precious Jesus, hold my hand. As I kneel in prayer, I hope to meet you there. Precious Jesus, hold my hand.